Welcome along, and this is my top 10 of the worst units in the classical period. It's all for a bit of fun. You may have your own ideas. Please leave comments below. I've done a number of top 10s. I've done top 10s of the best units. I've covered high middle ages. I've done 2 lists there because we had some DLCs. I've done LA, I've done classical for the best units, and I've also started to do some lists on the worst units. So let's kick this off, and I'm going to start with the Balearic Slingers. Balearic Slingers. Renowned Lightfoot skirmishers with sling. Now, I just think it's difficult to justify their price. You've got a lot of skirmishers at 24, you've got light javelin men at 24, and you've got your standard slingers at 24. Is there that much difference between your standard slingers and these guys? I don't think so. Archers are 30. Probably these units should be about 30. I just think they're really overpriced. When you start to get too close to what standard infantry or medium foot costs. I mean, look, we've even got this unit here, this medium foot. Okay, this is the Carthaginian 216 list, which has got a lot of great units and different kind of units that you wouldn't maybe get in other armies, like these guys, the Gurian foot. But they are medium foot, and they're 3 less than the slinger unit. That's when I start to wonder if you can justify this cost. Similar story to when I did my top 10 worst units in high middle ages. I think I had the light crossbowmen, which cost about 36. Yeah, it's just too much for skirmisher units. So I think this is a good unit to start us off. The Balearic Slingers, they go in at number 10. At number 9 on my list, I'm going to go for the Warband. Actually, I'm going to put both of them in, the close order and the loose order. I just think that close order Warband, especially, I always say this, but especially in classical, it really struggles. It struggles for a number of reasons. There's a lot of pike, there's a lot of spear. They're swordsman units, so they struggle against spear and pike. And also, yes, they are impact foot, but a lot of the half decent infantry that they're going to face is impact foot. Legionnaires are impact foot, imitation legionnaires. The Spanish medium foot, Hastati, a lot of this kind of infantry, they're all impact foot, so then that negates their advantage. So, and you look at the stats, yes, citizen hoplites are 110 up, but they don't always disrupt on impact, and then they go 50 down against citizen hoplites, which only cost 42, and these guys are 58, so they're even struggling in melee against standard hoplites. Pikes, they're only 10 up, and then they're 100 down in melee. Legionnaires, they're 40 down on impact, 75 down in melee. Imitation legionnaires, they're only 10 up on impact, and they are actually 12 down because of the armor in melee. So they really struggle. They often disrupt when they lose the melee rounds on the cohesion checks. They just seem to really struggle. And you've also got the loose order, which are even worse. Now, okay, this kind of army, warband army, it might be nice to have some which they're warriors, which is essentially medium foot, and then we might, like to have a few of these units to use on the rough ground. But in some armies, it's your main line, the loose order, and then it's even worse to rely on these troops. So you've really got to try to add some superior warband to give you a chance. And you have got noble cav, which I really like. So you've got some half decent cav support, but the warbands, they just are very fragile. They do better in LA, because in LA you don't have pikes and you have less spear. There's quite a lot of average kind of swordsmen, like in the Persian lists. There's the Arab foot, the Bedu foot, Sassanid foot. Those kind of units are very average swordsmen, and then warbands can do quite well. But in classical, a lot of the infantry is quite decent, and they're just going to struggle against the Greek pike armies, the Romans, Carthaginians with veteran spear, imitation legionnaires. So I don't have a lot of positives to say about them in classical period. Okay, they're a large unit, but it's just not enough. So they're going to go in at number 9. Number 8 on my list, I'm going to go for the armoured hoplites. Now, just to say from the very start, I'm not saying that they are a bad unit. Quite the opposite, actually. They are quite a good unit. Very effective because they are offensive spearmen and they're armoured. So they do very well against swordsman units, warband, imitation legionnaires, some knights, Spanish impact foot, those kind of units. They do especially well in melee. And they look wonderful as well. Look at these shields and the armour gleaming in the sunshine. But the question does arise about their cost effectiveness when you compare them to citizen hoplites, for example. Essentially the same unit, but they just get the armour. If you've been following my videos, I've mentioned it a few times. Armour is not that cost effective in the game, really. And you look at the price, that's 12 difference there. And yet the armour only gives them plus 25 in melee over citizen hoplites. On the impact phase, we don't count armour. We only count quality on impact. So they're evens on impact, and they're only 25 up against citizen hoplites in melee. And yet they cost 12 more. And if you take it even further, these units hiding at the back, the raw hoplites, so they'll get that minus 25 on the impact phase, but they'll only be 25 up on raw hoplites on impact, and then in the melee phase they'll be 50 down, the raw hoplites against the armoured hoplites. But raw hoplites got 30, 24 point difference, and yet they're only down 50 in the melee. So you do have to question their price. Maybe slightly cheaper, perhaps. They should be about 52 or so. And yes, they do well again. I mean, spearmen are good in the classical period. So an armour does give them that extra 25 advantage over your regular offensive spearmen. So I'm not saying that they're terrible, but yes, you do have to question how cost effective they really are. So they go in at number 8. At number 7. At number 7 on my list, I'm going to go for the Thracians. Now, just to say from the very start, I do quite like this unit. It does do quite well on the battlefield. It's got the heavy weapon. It looks different. Yeah, it's not terrible at all. But when you compare it to medium infantry with spear, generally speaking, it doesn't perform quite as well. There are only a few cases where it does better, mostly against armour, because the heavy weapon cancels out up to 50, I think, of the armour advantage. But the issue in classical is a lot of units with armour, such as the Romans or Roman-style infantry, are swordsmen. So the Thracians and the spear are both 150 down on impact against Roman style infantry, but then the spear is only 25 down in melee, whereas the Thracians are 50 down in melee. So even though it does cancel out some of the armor advantage, spear just does better against sword. So yeah, there's that. Really, the only kind of unit where they'd have the advantage over the spear would be armored hoplites. They're both evens on impact against armored hoplites, but then the spear goes to 25 down against armored hoplites because the armor advantage, whereas the Thracians would cancel that, and they're evens in melee as well. So that's really the only advantage. But a lot of units in classical, like pikes, for example, warbands, those kind of units, they're not armored anyway, so you're not going to get much of an advantage. And the spear just does better against warbands. Spear is 50 up in melee, whereas the Thracians with heavy weapon are evens. So overall, spear is just going to outperform, and they're probably better as well against cavalry. Well, they are better against cavalry. Yes, in medieval, probably the heavy weapon does a lot better because you've just got a lot more armored units, and you've also got the armored knights as well, and then that would cancel out a fair bit of the armor advantage. But in classical period, generally speaking, it would be better just to have spear. So they go in at number 7 on my list. At number 6 on my list, I'm going to go for the Nomad Light Horse Archers. And this is a very interesting army. This is the Indo-Parthian 60 BC army on a rather dramatic map next to the sea or lake. And we've got tons of light horse archers and horse archers, so we can make a good comparison with this army. And you may agree or you may disagree. Let's investigate. So starting from the bottom, we've got the Javelin Horse. If you've been following my videos, I put this unit in on my top 10 best units. Great price at 24. Light spear with javelin. Does fantastic job on the battlefield. So I really like that unit. Then you kind of jump up a bit to the light horse archers. Now for me, this is just my preference perhaps, and my style of play and what I like. When I'm going for skirmishers, whether it's foot skirmishers or light horse, I just go for the cheapest and I go for numbers. That's what I prefer myself. So already when you're jumping up 8 points more for light horse archers, I'm already questioning whether that's worth it. But in this army and in many armies, you don't get a lot of choice. We can only take 2 javelin horse with this army, so okay, fine, we'll pay the extra, the 32, and they are quite good units, and they're archers, and they can do a fairly decent job as well. But then we jump up even more to the Nomad light horse archers, and you're paying 40, and then I have to say, is that cost effective? And I think most of us would say no. What do you get? They're swordsmen. Do I really want swordsmen? Because they're still light horse. That's the problem. You've got Indian cavalry. Okay, this is really dirt cheap cav that most armies don't have, but this is cavalry that's 32. We've even got unarmored horse archers that I think are a really good buy because they are bona fide cavalry and they are the same price. So you've got horse archers that are cavalry and you've got horse archers that are light cav, and they're the same price, and they're both average unprotected. So unarmored horse archers are a lot more value for money. And in this list, I wouldn't even take out these guys. I mean, I've just done it because just to show you the purposes of this list, but you may as well just take the unarmored horse archers. There's I can't think of a reason why I would take the light horse archers at the same price. And even when you don't have unarmored horse archers, because they're fairly rare, look, you've got nomad horse archers at 44, so only 4 more than these guys, and you get protected bona fide cav with bow. So really, really expensive on all fronts comparing to the bottom to the top. I think they should be a little bit cheaper, 38 or something, 36 even. I just think they're well overpriced at 40. So they go in at number 6. At number 5, and number 5 on my list, I'm going to go for the Cretan archers. This will probably provoke some discussion and debate, which is fine. Some players like these units. I'm not really a fan, and we're going to go into some of the reasons why. Firstly, the price, 39. I think when I was doing top 10 lists for medieval and I did the worst units, I had the light longbowmen, and they were 36. They're very expensive, and this is probably the most expensive skirmisher unit that I've covered in either game. You just look at the difference of prices. Your standard slingers, javelin men, 15-point difference. Are they really worth it? What do you get for your money? Well, they are superior, so that's a plus 50 POA advantage in melee, better in shooting. Although in my tests, I did a load of tests, and it seems to me to be a roughly about 10% improvement over your standard archers. Is that really enough to justify the price? You've got to remember, in this game, it's not really so much about casualties, it's about cohesion checks. And I'm going to go into that when I talk about the tests that I did. But they will also survive cohesion checks as well because of their quality. So, shooting wise, when I did my tests, I had them firing away at a warband unit. In these kind of armies, you can only ever take 2 anyway. So what I did, I had 2 of the Cretan archers with a standard archer unit up against 3 standard archers. So, and I tested them out 5 times over 2 turns. And what did I find? So yes, the Cretan archers, they did a bit more damage, but in terms of cohesion checks, all of the archers forced, by the end of the second turn, there was a cohesion check, and overall, over those 5 turns, the Cretan archers caused 2 disruptions, but so did the standard archers. They caused 2 disruptions. There was no difference in cohesion checks or disruptions. There was just a little bit of a difference in casualties, and it was roughly 10%. So for me, I'm not so impressed. They didn't seem to force any extra disruptions or cohesion checks. Okay, there's not so much of a difference between archers compared to slingers anyway. It's 9-point difference, but even 9 points, that's quite a lot. I mean, if we took out, for this list, this is one of the Kyrenian Greek lists. If we took out our 2 Cretan archer units and we added 2 javelin men, so we've still got our skirmishers. We haven't lost any skirmishers, it's just now we've got some extra javelin men and we've got 30 points. You could have a whole extra infantry unit, raw hoplites. You could even upgrade these mercenary hoplites, 78. You could get a veteran hoplite unit. and another one, in fact, and that is a big jump. And we've got 6 left. Well, unfortunately, we can't get archers, but I mean, okay, this army just all seems to work out really easily. We can change citizen hoplites to mercenary hoplites, so we've really upgraded our our army just by getting rid of the Cretan archers and replacing them with javelin men. And now, instead of mercenary hoplites, we've got veteran hoplites, which are a lot better. They're superior quality offensive spear. So for certain armies especially, they really do not represent good value for money. I would argue that they just aren't good value for money, full stop. But in some of the armies like Macedonian 320 and Lysimachid 320, you don't have so many options as you have here. And there are only about 8 skirmish units max, and 2 of those are Cretan archers, so you'd probably end up taking them anyway. So in that sense, maybe there's not so much to worry about. But in other armies, especially this kind of army, it makes a huge difference. And also in other armies, I would just, when there's more archers, I just take the archers over the Cretan archers. That is my opinion. Anyway, I don't think they represent good value. So they're going to go in at number 5. At number 4, I've changed up my list a little bit. They were going to go in around 9, but I did a test. Did some tests with these guys, the Sparabara foot. I put them up against some of the regular kind of infantry of the classical period, pikes, citizen hoplites, imitation legionnaires, warband, nothing amazing. And they did absolutely terribly. Probably the worst performance in any test I've done of any unit. And you look at the stats, I mean, against pikes, they were 100 down on impact, 150 down in melee. Warband 110 down on impact, 50 down in melee. Imitation legionnaires 100 down on impact, 62 down in melee. And even your citizen hoplites, one of the cheapest half decent infantry units of the period, they're evens on impact, which is okay, and then they're 75 down in melee. And they were double dropping, they were disrupting, they were routing within 2 or 3 turns against those kind of units. They are terrible in melee. I do think this is the Persian 545 BC list, so there's a bit of an overlap. That's the problem with the Persians. I think they're really a biblical army, and they do much better against hoplites and the armies of that era. But once you get into classical period, they do really badly against impact foot, larger units like the warband and the pike units. They are, and spear, offensive spear as well. They're just struggling. They really are struggling. Okay, 1600 points, maybe that's a slight advantage. You do have a lot of numbers here, but again, I think in the earlier periods they just do better against your, I don't know, Egyptian spear and the Babylonian infantry and stuff like that. But against Roman legionnaires and pikes, they're not going to do so well. Maybe good players can use this kind of army. It's a very tricky army. You've got to try and use the terrain, maybe use rough ground and hills, force the enemy onto you, and then fire away. I mean, we do have a lot of bowmen. We've got about 18 here in this build, with some massed archers and the immortals. So you've got a lot of firepower, but it's just as soon as you get into melee, all falls apart rather quickly. So I don't have a lot of positives really to say about this unit. I mean, even if you think about similar units in high middle ages, the Paviciers, there's some mixed bow units there, but they do much better in melee. They can hold in melee, it seems to me. I guess they're fighting a lot of defensive spears, so they're not really fighting. There's not really that much impact foot in high middle ages, or large units like the pike and the warband. So those kind of units have a better time of it in my high middle ages. Although I guess also you've got to say that just sheer numbers. Most armies in high middle ages, you wouldn't have that many Paviciers or mixed bow units, and then we've got a whole ton of them here. So yeah, I'm not saying to put the price down or change the stats or anything. I think it's just difficult because this army kind of overlaps into classical, and then it just struggles a lot more there. So yeah, they go in at number 4. Third on my list, we're really getting to the absolute garbage now. The massed peltasts. These units are terrible, and this army is terrible. I mean, you've got to use them as part of your main force, together with the Thracians, and you've only got access to 3 of the mercenary hoplites. No pike, no legionnaires, no imitation legionnaires, no warband, no anything like that. So this is a really poor army, one of the Thracian armies, and there's just not a lot of good things to say about this unit. It's medium foot. What really is the hammer blow for this unit is it's only 50% swordsman. So there is a similar unit, the Phoenician foot, which is the same price, 33, and medium foot, but that unit is full swordsman. So you at least get all the swordsmen, but with this unit you only get 50% swordsman. And so it is really, really poor against heavy foot in the open, or even any decent medium foot. It's just not going to last. Apparently the Phoenician foot is not as maneuverable. This is a maneuverable unit, but it doesn't really make that much difference, and it's only 50% swordsman. It's just terrible, very fragile, won't last 1 or 2 turns even against any decent heavy foot. And pretty expensive for the price in terms of its performance. It should be 30. There's, you've in some lists you've got Ligurian foot. There's a few, cheap end medium foot, and this should definitely be 30 in my opinion anyway. So not really, absolutely zero in terms of any positives to say about this unit, and it justifiably goes in at 3rd on my list. At number 2 on my list, I'm going to go for the Indian close fighters. Oh my gosh, they've made it on my list again. On my high middle ages top 10 for worst units, I did 2 lists because there were some DLCs that came out, but they made it number 1 on one of those lists, so they're on number 2 here. So we're going to see what's worse than this unit, but I don't really have a lot of good things to say about them. They're essentially irregular foot, but they're protected. So irregular foot is lightly protected, and these guys are protected. Light spear and swordsman. Okay, irregular foot here get 50% swordsman. Okay, so they're slightly better, but 36 is still quite a lot for medium foot that just is so poor. just a few tests. I already know how bad they are, but they were fragmented, especially against Impact Foot, against the Warband and Invitation Legionnaire. I think they fragmented in either the Impact round or the second round. So against Warband, they're 110 down on Impact, and they're 100 against Invitation Legionnaires. And then they get that, those double minus modifiers, because they've got the minus modifier for fighting Heavy Foot in the open and Impact Foot. So they're really poor against Impact Foot. They're evens against Thracians on Impact and in melee, so that's not so bad. And then Citizen Hoplites evens on Impact, and then they're 50 down in melee. But because they're medium foot, every time they lose the melee and get the cohesion check, it's likely that they're going to disrupt. They are just really, really poor. And any army, a lot of these Indian armies, this is the Indo-Greek 175 list, and luckily I guess we've got some pikes. This is a very interesting army because I've never seen so many archers. 16 archers we've got here, so it'd be interesting army to play against. So you just be sort of running around trying to force the enemy onto you, get your archers onto rough ground, hills, maybe get your cav round on a flank, elephants ready to pounce. So they wouldn't be, I mean, in this build at the moment I've got 5, so okay, maybe they'd just be very much support. So in that sense they're not terrible, but some of the Indian armies, it's literally all you've got, and then it becomes really difficult to play well or to do anything offensive on the battlefield, because they're just not going to hold against heavy infantry. So yes, this unit pretty poor. Not a lot of good things to say about them. I guess you just got to keep them at the rear. Try and use your archers and get your pikes into action, and maybe they can support the pikes and support the elephants. Maybe that's what you need to do. But yeah, very, very poor unit. And they're in at number 2. At number 1, and number 1 on my list, probably a lot of you have already guessed, the Scythed Chariots. They look great, don't they? They really do. But their performance is absolutely shocking. It's just this disintegration. I never use these, but I actually did some tests, and looking at the stats, they're actually on Impact. They're way up against most cav. Armored cav, they're 200 up. Noble cav, armored noble cav, they're 150 up on Impact. Celtic Chariots, 150 up. Bedu cav, they're 100 up. So up against almost everything and anything on Impact. And then in melee, okay, they suffer a little bit. Even armored cavalry, the cheapest of the cheap, they're evens on the melee round. That is really poor. And they're down 50 against noble cav in melee and armored noble cav. So that's when they start struggling. If they lose the melee round, they just disintegrate. This is why nobody uses them. In my opinion, maybe we need a little bit of some new ideas, tinkering. We've had it with the wagons. I put the wagons. I think it was on one of my lists for High Middle Ages. They were number 1 for the worst unit in the game, and then in a few months ago in one of the updates, they were changed a little bit. Now they're cheaper. They've gone down to the mid-50s instead of being 75 or whatever they were. And they also give a bonus for the adjacent troops around them and the cohesion checks. And so they become a little bit more useful. And also artillery, the heavy R, that was another unit that was pretty useless. And now it can move. You can move before you fire it. That makes it a little bit more useful than what it was. So I think that these units, I don't know, my idea, maybe something like the elephants, maybe they should have some kind of disordering factor on units. Maybe you could have a cohesion check, a bit more radical, before contact charging these units or receiving a charge. A unit receives a cohesion check. I don't know, something like that. I mean, they were supposed to be something that you feared. So can we replicate that in the game? I mean, at the moment, they just suffer. Nobody uses them. And I think they should just be adjusted, adapted, updated a little bit. But yeah, at the moment, they are undoubtedly the worst unit in the game. So you've made it. Thanks a lot for following me. If you've got any ideas, suggestions on units that I've missed out or units that you think I've been unfair about, then please do put your comments below. Okay, see you again soon.